Hi everybody, Carl here, KE0JWK, back with part 2 on the fan dipole rebuild. Um, I've got it all going back together, but I wanted to talk to you about a little bit of how I did some things and the material used in the original build and reused in the rebuild. So since it's such a big, heavy antenna, as I mentioned in the last video, it's supported by a piece of galvanized fence wire, um, which goes all the way the whole length of the top wire to the center point, and that's probably one of the reasons my first one failed. Well, the cutting board got real brittle, but I didn't run it through in the middle. So each side was supported from the cutting board center insulator, and once it got stressed and the wind was blowing real hard when that storm came through, um, it broke and fell, as opposed to if I had the wire running all the way through. But I was concerned with the coupling, is the reason I separated it in the middle, because the top wire is definitely going to coupled to it. I started out with the wire going all the way through my pulleys in the trees, and it was a lot longer than my 160 element. And once I realized I couldn't tune it, so once I realized what was going on, I shortened it and brought my ropes through the pulleys instead of the wire. So anyway, so that's just standard galvanized fence wire. You can get it at any uh, farm supply place. It's pretty cheap stuff, and man, is it tough. And as you can see, I don't have any rust or anything on it yet, and it's been up well over 2 years, about 2.5 years. The wire I used itself, you can use whatever gauge you want, but this happens to be 12 gauge, and it's sold in rolls. Um, it's like a big zip cord. It's sold as landscape lighting wire. Comes in 250-foot rolls, which gives you 500 feet of wire once you separate them. I really like using that stuff for wire antennas, because you can unroll what you need off of the spool, cut it to length, and then separate it, which gives you two identical equal lengths of wire. So that's for even a simple dipole, it really makes it a breeze. Cuts your measuring and your time in half. Now the separators, as I said in the last video, I use anything outdoor. I try to use electrical PVC conduit. That's the grate pipe. And the reason I use it is because it is UV protected. It's made for outdoor use. One drawback of it is right there. If you've got to use couplings and stuff, you don't have as many options as you do with white PVC. Um, they just don't make, it's different kind of couplings and stuff that they use for electrical conduit as it is for plumbing. So I had to use a white cap on there, which um, isn't really a big deal. It's PVC glued on. It melts itself together, so it even as it deteriorates. Um, and these are in really good shape still, surprisingly. But you can paint them, make them last even longer. But even if it deteriorates the way this cap is, it's glued on there. It's not going anywhere. Now, as far as running the wires through, the top ones, what I actually did was slotted them, and that was during the original construction. It was just easier for me to do that and then put the cap on it. I could have drilled it and ran everything through, but the galvanized fence wire, it tends to have a lot of memory and wants to recoil itself, so it was just easier for me to do this as opposed to threading it through. Now, a lot of guys will use zip ties on their where they attach to their spreaders. What I did, you can see which direction the hole's going through for the top support wire in the 160 wire. The next one down, I drilled 90 degrees, and because this wire comes through, goes across, and then goes that way again, it keeps itself in place. I haven't had any slippage problems doing it like this. The next one is the same way, but it's from the opposite side, which, you know, kind of puts a reverse torque on the spreader. And then the next one is back the other way, and then the last one, in this case, I've just got it tied off at the moment, which the excess wire, when I get ready to tune, I'll adjust. This will get wrapped back on itself. And some of these I've actually got quite long and no problems. You know, I've heard a lot of guys say, "Oh, you can't wrap a whole bunch of wire back on itself like that. It creates issues," and that's false. It doesn't create any inductance issues, as I've heard claimed, because it's self-coupling. It just couples right to itself. No big deal. So I just wanted to go over some of the stuff that I've used. As you saw up here at the end, this time I'm using some egg insulators. Yeah, it's kind of a mess still right now. The whole antenna is pretty close to the ground still. In fact, I've 20-meter wires laying on the ground right there. But I do have it hooked up to my antenna analyzer. I'm going to check it out and raise it up just a little bit, do some adjusting, and then get it in the air and see how much it changes. I may do a video on that also. I will try to remember to save some screenshots so I can do some comparisons and show you what difference it makes from adjusting it this close to the ground and then raising it up. Hopefully I won't have to go up and down with it a lot. When I first built the antenna a few years ago, I about wore myself out because it's you know, longer than a football field between the two connection points, and I was by myself. I'd have to raise one end or both ends, adjust, raise both ends, walk back and forth, lower back down, adjust again, raise back up. And since this antenna actually spans straight across my roof when it's hanging, it also meant climbing up and down a ladder onto the roof. You know, so it was quite time consuming. So I'm going to give it a shot, get it adjusted where I want it close to the ground like this. I will raise that side up a little bit more before I start, and hopefully when I put it up in the air, it'll be close enough. I'm not going to get real crazy with it. It worked real well before. All the standing wave on every band was, and I've got stuff written down somewhere. I don't remember what the reactance and everything was, but I had all the standing wave your SWR measurements down around 2 or better, I believe. There might have been one band that was run about a 3-to-1 SWR, but I can't remember. Anyway, it was well within my tuner range, and this has always been my go-to antenna. I've had such good luck with it that when all else fails, I switch to this, and it seems to work out well for me most of the time. You know, if you've been playing with radios much, you know, conditions change, but this has always done well for me. Even on 160, even though I barely ever use 160, I really considered removing 160 from it, but I thought, it's together, I'll put it back up again, whether I use it or not. I don't know. I just don't get on it that much. Thanks for watching. KE0JWK.